Hello, I'm Joe, and I miss DVD menus. Over the last 17 years or so, I've steadily built up a collection of about 500 or so movies. Not the craziest collection, but serviceable. Over the years, as we've gone from DVD to Blu-Ray, from Blu-ray to 4K Ultra HD, I've noticed a shift in how much effort is put into the physical release. See, back in the day, booting up a DVD was an experience. While in the early days they were a bit limited in terms of interactivity, they packed as many special features as they could in these johns. You want to know the biographies of every actor in The Mask? You got it. As we got into the 2000s and DVDs had supplanted VHSs, they put so much more effort into these menus. You didn't just boot up Shrek 2. Oh no, you sat there and you listened to Donkey list off all the better, more donkey-centric titles for the movie.
Shrek 2? What kind of title is that? What about Shrek 2, Day of the Donkey?
Oh boy.
Or Shrek 2, The Donkey's Revenge?
In fact, Shrek 2 is a shining example of how cool home media used to be. And I'm not even saying that for the meme. Matter of fact, let me just read you off everything that came with the Shrek 2 DVD. You got an all-new surprise ending, a whole game called Far, Far Away Idol, which was basically like American Idol, but in Far, Far Away. You got, what else? You got hilarious technical goofs, I'm assuming a blooper reel. Commentary for a kid's movie! For comparison, let's look at a 4K Blu-ray I got for a more grown-up sequel, Creed 3. You get Michael B. Jordan in the ring behind the camera. Solid. Donnie and Dane, There's No Enemy Like the Past. Solid. And deleted scenes. Now that's really 2 featurettes and some deleted scenes, and with this movie from 2004 you got like hours of content beyond the film itself. But I have to say, one of the most disappointing 4K Blu-rays I've purchased is Zack Snyder's Justice League. Back in my day, when a director's cut of a movie dropped on Blu-ray, you could bet that thing was going to be chock full of special features. The Lord of the Rings extended editions are essentially the granddaddies for this kind of packaging. I mean, you've got this really cool map of Middle-earth. The movies are shaped like books to give it more of a tome feel. And this is a 15-disc set for 3 movies. It's filled with behind-the-scenes featurettes detailing the hard work and passion this team put into these movies. Heck, for the Blade Runner director's cut, you got like 5 different cuts of the movies and 9 hours of special features. So you'd think this massive 4-hour director's cut that was willed into existence from a passionate, if occasionally toxic fan base would be chock full of featurettes and special features documenting the film's process from its original production before it got unfortunately Whedonized to how they finished the movie in 2021 in a pandemic, no less. Right? LOL. Nah, you get special feature. Road to Justice League, which has Zack Snyder reflecting on his trilogy of films and giving brief insight into the process of making Zack Snyder's Justice League. At this point, you might be asking yourself, why do I care about this? Heck, why should you care about this? Well, the answer is twofold. First, I think physical media is more important now than ever before, and I think it's unwise for both consumers and studios to outright abandon this market. You don't need me to tell you that over the last decade, streaming has become the predominant form of media consumption. It makes sense how we got here. It's undoubtedly the most convenient way to watch a movie or TV show, but as we've seen, that convenience does have a cost, and unfortunately, it is both us, the consumers, and the hardworking men, women, and MBs who put their time, effort, and energy into the stories we consume that are paying the price. Over the last year, we've seen numerous completed shows and movies getting shelved or outright pulled from streaming services because the economics of streaming just aren't making sense. The home video was the lifeline for the film industry for a good while. It's why so much cool shit got made. Sure, there were always the 4-quadrant tentpoles designed to make as much money as possible, but it also left space for the mid-budget movie and a burgeoning independent market. Even if those movies didn't make all their money back in theatrical, they could count on DVD sales and rentals. So many movies that underperformed in theaters wound up having a second life due to home video. One of the most notable is The Boondock Saints. That movie made nothing, zilch, nada, jack in theaters. It had like No marketing, yet through strong word of mouth, the movie built a cult following through rentals and DVD sales. So much so that a sequel was made a decade after the original's release and actually made a decent chunk of change. On a purely technical level, you're getting more out of your average 4K Ultra HD than you would get out of a 4K stream. You ever start a movie on a streaming service and notice the visuals are a little bit soft or blurry and that the audio has to be turned up super high? Well, that's because when you're getting the streaming version, it's a much more compressed version of that film, so it's filled with lossy audio and the visuals may not be at the level that the filmmakers intended for it to be. Home video was also a large reason why so many genres thrived. Depending on who you ask, it was either Marvel or the looming specter of wokeness that killed comedies, but I'd argue neither of those things are true, no matter how badly you want confirmation bias to make it so. No genre benefited from the heydays of home video than comedies. If a comedy didn't find an audience in theaters, it could probably find one on home video. Largely because a lot of R-rated comedies were targeted at teenagers who weren't old enough to buy a ticket, but they probably could convince their mom to let them rent Old School when they were far below the age threshold. Appreciate you, Madre. One of my favorite comedies as a teenager, Grandma's Boy, made nothing at the box office, but made nearly $35 million in DVD sales alone. I'm certain that if you were a teenager at any point between 2004 to 2010, you've seen this box art. So if a comedy largely aimed at teenage boys and mainly serving as a break between rounds of Halo and Guitar Hero can make that kind of money, you can only imagine the kinds of numbers the Star Wars, Pretty Woman's, Matrixes of the day were doing. I mean, shoot, simply in terms of value proposition, comedies were where it's at because they were chock full of bloopers and special features that were oftentimes just as funny as the movie themselves. I think about the Superbad commentary almost as much as I think about Superbad itself. If you've never watched Zero with the commentary, I highly recommend packing up a Blu-ray or a DVD and watching it. It is hilarious. When it became clear 2 or 3 years ago that like every studio was going to be gung-ho on streaming, I had one big question. Where is the money? Just like I could never make the math on streaming. When I saw how much they were charging for the services, the amount of people subscribing, and the amount they were spending on content, I was just like, how? They widened the amount of shows and movies they were making, but they hampered their ability to make money off those stories. It worked for Netflix because they were the only game in town for nearly a decade and built their model from the ground up. I didn't quite understand everyone else going headfirst into this market. We take it back, not even like to the 90s, just 15 years ago, to like 2008. With just one movie, you had multiple pay windows. You had theatrical, home video rentals and purchases, the pay one window that was traditionally reserved for premium cable channels like HBO and Starz, and the pay two window where many a great TNT marathon was made. So that was about 5 different ways one movie can make money. Now, in our technologically enlightened age of 2023, when it comes to actively paying for one story, that window was basically theatrical or bust. They straight up took away a revenue stream that was essential to keeping movies afloat and, most importantly, interesting. And then made the shocked Pikachu face when selling all their content library for dirt cheap to a fractured audience didn't bring in the same level of profits. And what's crazy is the company that seems to be struggling the most in this new streaming age was the one that understood the value of home video the best in Disney. If you don't remember the Disney Vault, here's a commercial to explain it.
On January 31st, Mickey will be leaving.
So long.
Sleeping Beauty will go back to sleep. And Mowgli will go back to the jungle.
I want to stay here with you. Goodbye.
Because on January 31st, Disney will stop selling The Jungle Book, Sleeping Beauty, and Fun and Fancy Free. So before they go back into the Disney Vault for years to come, hurry.
For both their classics and their new releases, Disney would put them out for a limited amount of time before returning them to the fabled Disney Vault. This trend continued through DVDs and Blu-rays, and they really put a lot of effort into these releases. Beauty and the Beast Special Edition came with 3 versions of the film: the original theatrical cut, the special edition with a restored musical number, and the work-in-progress version that was only shown at the New York Film Festival. There was a real sense in the DVD era that your dollar was valued. You chose to own a movie, and you're rewarded with inventive menus, robust special features, and a copy of the movie in the highest quality resolution you could find. Now when I buy a 4K Blu-ray, I largely expect to get just the latter and none of the other cool stuff. I mean, hell, the menus are basically just the key art of the film along with options that look like they were designed in Sony Vegas. Now, there are places like Criterion that have been holding it down. I mean, one need only look at, this is a book / case for the Godzilla Showa eras. You get essays for each movie, you get this really cool packaging, but not everyone's doing that. In fact, very few people are doing that. But the beauty of how Criterion goes about it and how everyone else used to go about it is that it added a real sense of personality to the films. The robust special features serve both as a great film school, but also a reminder that movies are made by people. And finally, the last benefit to owning physical media is that it ensures you will always have access to the movie or show you love. We've already talked about streaming services removing movies without a warning, but what about services that go away completely? We've seen PlayStation stop the sale of movies on its marketplaces, and it was a fucking bitch to try and figure out how to download the PlayStation Video app so I could watch the Season of Code Geass I bought like 7 years ago on my PS4. And considering that the economics are getting a little wonky, it wouldn't be surprising if some of these services outright go away in a few years' time. And if something like a Vudu collapses, then all those movies you put in your digital library could potentially be gone. Like, yeah, they might refund you, but you don't have access to that content anymore. If you, like me, want studio movies to be interesting again, buy more movies. If you, like me, want non-Hollywood movies to remain interesting, buy more movies. If you want to make sure you will always have access to the films and shows you love, buy more movies. I know space and money is a real stopgap for people. I'm not saying buy every single movie that comes out, but I do think it's worthwhile to invest in the stories you love. I don't want physical media to be yet another victim of this analytics culture we live in. There is a reason for its existence, there is value in that market, and I truly believe that as people realize streaming just becomes more and more like piecemeal cable without any of the curation, they're gonna gravitate back to physical media. I mean, heck, look what's happening with vinyl. So, that's my spiel. I'll see you in the next one, and I promise the next one is coming much sooner, just was a bit of a month. Later.